In 1872, Andrew Carnegie is living the American dream. Now, the man who got rich forging iron and building bridges is setting his sights on a bigger dream: building the nation's largest steel mill. Standing in his way, his brother, Tom, who thinks Andrew's big dreams are too risky.
We have a good business, but it's my job to keep an eye on the bottom line.
Enough with the bottom line. It shackles our ambition.
It's a battle only one man can win,
We are building that steel mill.
pushing the other to the edge.
Gathered here will now join me in the reciting of the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be
In
thy
1855, just outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a 20-year-old Scottish immigrant has just buried his father. His name is Andrew Carnegie. For most, this would mark a passage into the responsibilities of manhood. But Andrew Carnegie has been taking care of his family since he was a boy. Andrew, his parents, and younger brother Tom first arrived in Pittsburgh almost a decade before, immigrating from Dunfermline, Scotland in 1848.
Carnegie's father had been a master weaver, but the weaving industry was taken over by mechanized looms. He didn't have a profession to practice anymore. And so they did what so many other people displaced by the effects of the Industrial Revolution in Europe did. They came to the United States looking for a fresh start.
But just as in Scotland, Andrew's father, William, is unable to find steady work.
He did some weaving. He tried to sell his goods in Pittsburgh, but he couldn't do it. And it was left to Andrew to become the breadwinner.
At the age of 12, Andrew takes a job in a factory making spools for the booming textile industry's mechanized cotton looms, working 12 grueling hours a day, 6 days a week. He brings his pay home to give to his mother to help feed the family. Desperate to escape the brutal factory floor, Andrew manages to find a job as a messenger in one of Pittsburgh's telegraph offices, where his positive attitude and rigorous work ethic soon earn him a promotion to telegraph operator.
He had a special gift. He could listen to the click, 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 tack, tack, tack of Western Union code, and unlike other people who had to transcribe it by hand and then interpret the Western code into intelligible lines, Carnegie could do that in his head.
Andrew's skills soon land him a job as a telegraph operator at one of America's most successful companies, the Pennsylvania Railroad.
He is snatched away by the Pennsylvania Railroad because they needed a telegraph operator who was the best. And Andrew was.
Carnegie soon works his way up the ladder. Where he catches the eye of one of the company's executives, Tom Scott.
Andy,
A rich and successful businessman, Scott is the company's executive vice president, a daring visionary who seeks to expand the railroad across the entire nation. And as the ambitious, intelligent Andrew matures, Scott takes him under his wing, revealing some of the secrets to his success.
So I bought 100,000 shares at $10 a share before news of the contract came out. When the issue became public, the shares doubled in value. The next day, you know what I did? I sold them. I didn't have to build a thing. Yes, sir.
Soon, Scott offers Andrew a chance to make an investment of his own, using inside information.
He told Andrew Carnegie that the Pennsylvania Railroad was about to sign a lucrative contract with a delivery service, and that it would probably be a wise investment for Carnegie to buy stock in that company. Well, Carnegie says, well, I don't have $500. Scott lent Carnegie the $500. Carnegie made about $40,000 on the deal. Today, of course, it would land him in jail, most likely, but at the time, perfectly legal.
The deal is only the first of many, as Andrew's investment income is soon earning him more than 5 times his salary. And by the age of 24, he has risen from being a child on the factory floor, struggling to support his family, to a successful businessman and investor.
Andrew was driven with a force that was like a tornado. He wanted to achieve enormous success. Whatever he achieved was not sufficient. He wanted more.
Andrew's success doesn't just transform his life, but his family's, enabling him to buy a house for his mother and brother in Homewood, a village 8 miles outside of Pittsburgh, away from the city's smoke-filled air, giving his mother, Margaret, a life she could have only dreamt of when they first left for America.
The bond between Andrew Carnegie and his mother, Margaret, was a very strong one. She was a very, very strong-willed woman. She worked very hard, and this work ethic passed from her to her son.
Andrew's work ethic is so strong, his drive to succeed so unwavering, it leaves no time for a private life. As he spends every waking hour seeking out new investment opportunities, soon turning his focus to iron. Iron forms the foundation of the railroad industry. And in 1865, with the Civil War now over and hopes of a new railroad boom on the horizon, Carnegie wants a piece of the action. But rather than invest in an existing operation, Carnegie founds his own, the Union Iron Company.
Mr. Connor!
Yes, sir.
How's the output?
She's running at full capacity, sir.
Good, carry on.
And to help run it, he brings in someone he knows he can trust. His brother, Tom. 8 years younger than Andrew, Tom has grown up worshiping his older brother. With Andrew frequently traveling in search of new investment opportunities, he entrusts Tom with the responsibility of running day-to-day operations at Union Iron.
Tom Carnegie was very bright and capable. He was a very effective manager, and Andrew saw a lot in Tom.
Despite his confidence in Tom's abilities, Andrew keeps in constant communication, making sure his brother is following his aggressive lead.
Tom wanted to have wealth, but he wasn't driven to achieve this.
More sensitive and less ambitious than Andrew, Tom is prone to take the micromanaging as a criticism, feeling the stress to live up to his brother's expectations.
Tom was not as driven a personality as Andrew was. I mean, that quite often happens in families where there's an older brother who sort of takes the reins and a younger brother looks up in awe.
Despite their differing approaches, as the railroad industry booms, so does the iron industry.
If you look at maps of the railroad systems in America in 1840, they're all clustered on the eastern seaboard and maybe all the way to the Appalachian Mountain Range. After the Civil War, those railroads start stretching out across the country.
With demand for iron suddenly at an all-time high, the money flows in. But rather than make Tom's life easier, it ratchets up the pressure, because Andrew Carnegie is looking for new ways to spend it. In England, Andrew visits a factory making a product that could revolutionize the railroad industry, which has always relied on unpredictable, pure, unalloyed iron rails.
Carnegie understood very early on that iron was strong but brittle. And iron rails, they didn't cost a whole bunch, but they broke. They had to be repaired time and time again.
The only possible alternative is steel, an alloy made from iron and carbon that is both stronger and more malleable than iron alone. But it has always been far too costly to consider.
Steel had always been essentially a semi-precious metal because it was so expensive to manufacture. You could only make it in small batches, and you needed very highly skilled people called puddlers to make it.
Now, British engineer Thomas Dodd has invented a process to give iron rails the increased strength and durability of steel at a fraction of the cost by reinforcing them with it. And once he sees it, Andrew is convinced it is the future.
What Carnegie had was vision, and he had decided that of all the business possibilities that he had sampled, this was the one that would lead him to the greatest success.
Determined to bring steel-faced rails to America, Andrew buys the American patent rights from Dodd. But when Tom receives word of Andrew's purchase, he believes it's a mistake. While Dodd's steel-faced rails show promise, they have not been tested on a wide scale, and the weld between the two metals has sometimes failed under heavy loads. With the enormous amount of capital it will require to try and perfect the process, Tom believes Andrew could be putting the company at risk.
Tom Carnegie was not a risk taker. He was not interested in profits for the sake of profits. He wanted to be an effective manager, and he was.
Andrew refuses to listen to Tom, and with the American patent in hand, he retools the forge and enters into an agreement with the Pennsylvania Railroad to supply them with steel-reinforced rails. But the first test run is a failure, as the rails break, causing a train to derail. With Tom increasingly turning to alcohol to deal with the stress, he urges his brother to cut their losses and abandon the process. But Andrew stubbornly refuses, traveling the country in search of new investors, firing off letters to Tom to free up money to secure new patents and fund continued research and development.
I am convinced that steel is the future. My forecast shows that we will require another $1 million before the year is out.
Despite Andrew's efforts, the problems persist. And soon, the company Andrew Carnegie gambled would change the face of the railroad industry is out of business. The failure of Andrew Carnegie's venture into steel-faced rails isn't just a blow to his ego. It might have also derailed his dreams of even greater wealth. Determined to put the failure behind him, Andrew shifts his focus back to iron, founding the Keystone Bridge Company to construct iron railroad bridges across the country, bridges that use iron from his very own Union Iron Company. Thanks to his ingenious plan, both of Carnegie's companies are soon reaping record profits. And Andrew is personally earning $100,000 per year, the equivalent of over $2.3 million today. Success that sets the stage for another move. In 1870, Andrew, now 35, relocates to New York City.
It was a sign of great success to be able to leave the origins behind and come to New York, because it meant that you could afford to do it.
Andrew does not make this move alone, however. By his side, as always, is his mother, Margaret.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. I have an investment which I believe, if we act quickly, could change all of our lives. Gentlemen, what I have to offer you is an investment in a new steel mill. We can dominate this market.
Gilded Age New York gives Andrew access to the capital he needs to expand his businesses.
I have a feeling this is an investment you'll find quite worthwhile. To prosperity. Cheers. I thought you might appreciate a glass of Glenturret before we get started. Finest whiskey in all of Scotland. Isn't that right, Mother?
Indeed.
Now, to continue our earlier conversation.
The move to New York reinvigorates Andrew. But even at age 35, his focus remains firmly on his business ambitions. The only woman in his life remains Margaret Carnegie.
Andrew Carnegie and his mother had a partnership, if you will, that went beyond the normal mother-son relationship. They depended on one another. They respected one another deeply. He was devoted to his mother.
Back in Pittsburgh, with his brother and mother gone, Tom Carnegie charts a different course, settling down and starting a family. Moving into the family house in Homewood with his wife, Lucy.
Oh, good. You haven't left yet.
Why's that?
Well, I haven't given you your goodbye kiss.
And their 3 sons, William, Frank, and Andrew.
What time can we expect you for supper?
I should be home by 6. Plenty of time to eat. but then I'm off to poker.
Well, you'll be missed. We love you.
Kiss the kids for me.
Along with his stable home life, Tom is now able to oversee day-to-day operations in Pittsburgh, with less interference from Andrew. Though conflicts soon arise when it comes to Andrew's ongoing desire for expansion. On a business trip to England, Andrew takes a tour of Henry Bessemer's new state-of-the-art steel mill, which employs his patented namesake method of fabrication. The Bessemer process produces 5 to 10 tons of steel per hour, which takes a week using the older fabrication method. For Andrew Carnegie, it's a revelation. Steel has always been lighter and stronger than unalloyed iron. Now, it's finally cheaper.
Carnegie realized that once steel was cheap, its utility was just enormous. It was so much better than wrought iron, which is what they had been using for railroad rails.
After becoming one of several companies to secure the right to use the process, Andrew is determined to make the most out of the opportunity. With the U.S. government instituting tariffs on all imported steel to protect American steel manufacturers from foreign competition, he plans to build a state-of-the-art Bessemer steel mill in Pittsburgh. But Tom Carnegie's pragmatism makes him wary of any major investment, no matter how promising.
Tom, with the tariff on imported steel, the door has been swung wide open. But every day we wait opens that door to our competitors.
Every time you go to England, you come back with these grand plans. But it's my job to keep an eye on the bottom line.
Enough. With the bottom line, it shackles our ambition.
It keeps the company profitable.
Our profits are fine, but good God, Tom, they can be great.
We have a good business, a thriving business. There's no need to put it all at risk just to satisfy your insatiable appetite for expansion.
Complacency breeds death. We are building that steel mill.
Once again, Andrew's ambitious vision is clashing with his younger brother's conservative practicality. But Tom Carnegie knows it's a battle he cannot win. Construction of the Edgar Thomson Steel Mill, named in honor of the owner of the Pennsylvania Railroad, takes almost 3 years. At a cost of $1.2 million, more than $33 million in today's money. And from the moment the plant turns out its first 2,000 steel rails in 1875, Pittsburgh becomes the steel capital of the nation.
Being at the confluence of two rivers, the Allegheny and the Monongahela, which in turn formed the Ohio, made Pittsburgh a perfect locale for the steel industry because they provided transportation for that very heavy product.
But even with the efficient new steelmaking process, the nation's sluggish economy makes it difficult to find buyers. Carnegie Steel must slash prices. And Tom, now a father of 7, struggles to manage the stress.
Had enough.
Tom, the baby's napping.
He has me walking a tightrope every day of the week.
Tom, you are a strong man and a smart one. Just keep doing your best and it'll all work out.
The best is never enough.
With the pressure mounting, Tom is struggling to cope.
Tom Carnegie had one weakness. He was an alcoholic.
He would leave for lunch at noontime, then spent the next 4 hours, 5 hours, drinking. Somehow, he would return to work at 4 o'clock.
Despite all the problems, by the dawn of the 1880s, as the economy stabilizes, the steel industry rebounds. And with many steel companies having fallen by the wayside during the economic downturn, the Edgar Thomson Mill reaps the rewards, pulling in profits of over $2 million in 1882, the equivalent of $60 million today.
The thing about Carnegie was he simply decided to hang in there while other people gave up. And of course, sure enough, he succeeded.
The great businessmen, like Andrew Carnegie, saw what their competitors didn't see. They looked into the future.
Now, at the age of 45, with his business booming, Andrew has finally decided to make room for a personal life and begins courting 21-year-old Louise Whitfield, the daughter of a wealthy New York City textile merchant whose family had been in America for over 2 centuries. Though the age difference is significant, Louise is wise beyond her years, having cared for her seriously ill mother and younger siblings after her father's passing.
Louise Whitfield was well-educated, she was intelligent, she was serious, she was mature beyond her years. In her, he found someone who he could speak with very freely, he respected her opinion, and he was very drawn to her.
Having single-mindedly dedicated his life to work and to caring for his mother. This is Andrew's first relationship, and it is important that Louise meet with the approval of Margaret Carnegie, whom he has continued to live with.
You have nothing to worry about. She's going to love you as much as I do.
Do I look all right? Maybe I should have worn something different.
You look marvelous. You always do.
Well?
Mother, I was just telling Louise how much you two have in common.
I can't imagine what that could be, except our affection towards you, dear.
I love to read. Andrew tells me you enjoy a good book.
Thank you so much for coming, Louise.
I've nearly just arrived. I was hoping we could spend the afternoon. Andrew speaks so highly of you and expressed a great deal that he'd like us to be close.
Yes, well, I'll, see you to the door.
It was a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Carnegie.
Take care.
Margaret Carnegie did not particularly want to share her son with anybody. Andrew's close relationship with his mother kind of didn't leave much room for anyone else.
Andrew Carnegie knows building a life apart from his mother will require patience and perseverance. Despite Margaret's disapproval, he and Louise continue to see each other and even become secretly engaged, though Andrew has no plans to marry while his mother is still alive. As Andrew finally tries to build a life apart from his mother and outside of the steel business, in Pittsburgh, worn down by the demands of work and his excessive drinking to cope with it, Tom is now laying the groundwork to get out of the business completely and finally enjoy the fruits of his labor. He convinces Andrew to consolidate all of their enterprises into a single corporation, Carnegie Brothers and Company, giving Tom a larger ownership stake, one that will allow him to retire in his early 40s and finally spend time with Lucy and their 8 children.
This is my plan for us.
Tom purchases Cumberland Island off the coast of Georgia, where he plans to build an estate where he and his family can live in comfort, away from the smog and stress of Pittsburgh. Once it is complete, Tom makes his retirement official. And Andrew gathers the company's executives to pay tribute to his younger brother.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I can have your attention, please. I'd like to make a small toast to my brother, a man who stood by my side through thick and thin and seen me at my worst. I know we sometimes disagree, but I also know that he always wants what's best. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. To you, Tom. To Tom.
With his spectacular new mansion, called Dungeness, now complete, Tom and his family are ready to begin the next chapter of their lives on Cumberland Island. And though his steady hand will be missed, Andrew is excited for the company's next phase. But less than a year later, in 1886, Andrew's world is plunged into chaos as he is stricken with deadly typhoid fever, and his life suddenly hangs in the balance. Typhoid fever is running rampant, killing tens of thousands of Americans per year. And no one, no matter how rich they are, is immune. Andrew Carnegie has retreated to his cottage in Pennsylvania's Allegheny Mountains. With Louise at his side as he struggles to survive, fate deals him a cruel blow. As his brother Tom, who has just moved his family to Cumberland Island, tragically passes away at the age of 43, succumbing to pneumonia, his body too weakened by years of drinking to fight it off.
Oh, you're burning up.
I'll be all right.
And then, only a month later, his mother Margaret who has been staying in the room directly next to him in the cottage, dies after an extended illness. Her body brought back to Pittsburgh without Andrew even knowing.
Doctors were so afraid of the effect that learning of his mother's death would have on Carnegie that they had her corpse lowered out a window and down to the waiting hearse on the grounds so that Carnegie himself would not be aware that his mother had passed away.
Once Andrew has fully recovered, he is devastated to learn of his mother's death. But the love and support he receives from Louise, now 31 years of age, not only gives him the strength to move on with his life, but to finally marry the woman he adores.
Carnegie had put her through hell. They had been, God, for years and years and years and years, they were courting. After Carnegie's mother dies, he's ready to start a family. And Louise says yes.
The couple then returns to New York, excited to begin the next chapter of their lives. And on April 22nd, 1887, Andrew and Louise are married in a small private ceremony at her father's home. And before that ceremony, Louise signs away her right to almost all of Carnegie's wealth, which is estimated to be over $20 million, the equivalent of over $350 million today.
Louise signed a prenuptial agreement, something that I believe was pretty unique at the time. And in the prenuptial agreement, Andrew agreed to give her an income of $20,000 a year. And in return, she agreed to support the fact that he was going to give his fortune away.
So this is in, the middle 1880s. This is before he retires. He knows what he's going to do with that fortune. Louise says, I support that and I salute that.
For Andrew, the death of his mother and his brother, and his own brush with mortality, have convinced him he must begin to turn his focus to using his wealth for the greater good.
Carnegie was the capitalist par excellence. But he said from the very beginning, I'm making this money so I can give it back to the community that made it with me.
Now, with a plan in place to one day give his money away, Andrew Carnegie is determined to amass as much wealth as possible while he still can. To help achieve that goal and fill the job once held by his brother Tom, he hires Henry Clay Frick to be president of Carnegie Steel.
Frick was a tough businessman, and what he cared about was the bottom line. And anything that got in the way of that, he had no use for.
Carnegie is hoping Frick's reputation as a ruthless pursuer of profits can help him rein in a growing cost.
One of the Carnegies, the principal costs, besides that of the materials needed to produce steel, was, of course, labor. And keeping labor costs consistent became an obsession.
When he was an iron mill operator, Carnegie had unions, and he was the friend of the union. But iron mills only have a handful of people. His steel mills had thousands. He wanted the authority to lay people off, to cut wages, to promote some people, and fire other people.
Carnegie is now facing serious labor unrest at his steel mill in Homestead, Pennsylvania. where the Amalgamated Iron and Steel Workers Union is fighting against wage cuts and for better working conditions.
Carnegie supported unions so long as they weren't powerful, but his tune changed, and he needed an enforcer.
Frick has always opposed unions and knows how to break them, and Carnegie gives him the power to do what he sees fit. Aiming to break the union with a lockout, Frick shuts down the mill, putting up fortified fences to keep the workers out, and placing ads in papers across the nation to bring scab workers in. In the summer of 1892, with tempers reaching a boiling point, Andrew Carnegie, now vacationing in Scotland, faces the moment of truth.
Carnegie knew there was going to be trouble, so he sent Frick a telegram. We are with you all the way, even to the extent of a contest. And by contest, he meant a fight, even if it comes to violence. Frick took that literally.
On July 6, 1892, after weeks of stalemate, Frick prepares to reopen the plant with scab workers under armed guard.
Frick brought in the Pinkertons, who were basically hired goons to provide cover for the strike breakers.
But the Union isn't going out without a fight, forcing their way onto the factory grounds and erecting a barricade in a daring show of defiance and solidarity.
When the Pinkertons came in intending to guard the plant, workers confronted them, about 3,000 of them, outnumbering the Pinkertons 10 to 1.
We're here to take possession of this property. Tear down this barricade!
The bloody battle rages for hours. When the dust settles, 3 Pinkerton guards and 7 Union workers are dead, and the mill is under the workers' control. But the victory is short-lived.
The governor sent in the entire Pennsylvania National Guard, about 8,500 troops. And with that show of force, it was the end. The Union capitulated. Scabs then were escorted into the plant.
Frick's move brings an end to the battle for control at Homestead. But for Andrew Carnegie, it has come at a cost to his reputation.
Carnegie distanced himself from Frick. Carnegie said, I would have handled it differently. The reality was that he knew what Frick was doing. He knew he had given Frick orders, break the Union. But Carnegie didn't want to be the villain.
Carnegie can't escape the backlash, as newspaper articles across the country label him a coward.
The right to privately organize unions was a very important part of American business. And the violence in Homestead, that is a stain on Carnegie. He was out of the country, but he cannot be absolved.
Determined to resuscitate his image, Carnegie begins to make good on his philanthropic goals, building a new library and natural history museum in Pittsburgh, and a library in Homestead itself, overlooking the mill.
It's hard to know what all his motives were. Some would say guilt. I kind of don't think so. Carnegie was a great believer in education and books and reading.
Carnegie never felt guilty about anything that reaped a giant whirlwind of money. And this was, this was just part of the deal. That was the moral price that had to be paid to collect a fortune that was going to make a difference for humankind.
As Carnegie's public image rebounds, his private life is also undergoing change. In 1897, he and Louise welcome a daughter, naming her after Andrew's mother, Margaret.
Louise wanted a child more than anything, and she gave birth to my grandmother, Margaret, and they were absolutely thrilled.
Now happy at home in New York City, and with continued business success, as the turn of the century approaches, Carnegie accelerates his commitment to philanthropy, building multiple libraries across the country, as well as what will become his most famous building.
He built Carnegie Hall. Millions of people have heard the music from Carnegie Hall.
By 1900, Carnegie Steel is the world's largest, most profitable steel company, producing more than the entire British steel industry combined. And in 1901, when wealthy investment banker J.P. Morgan makes Andrew an offer he can't refuse, he sells the company to Morgan for the record-breaking price of $480 million, the equivalent of over $17 billion today.
Carnegie was ready to move, and if he was going to get out, he wanted out completely. And J.P. Morgan was able to buy everything from him. And when the deal was signed, Morgan said to Carnegie, "You are now the richest man in the world."
The sale personally nets Andrew Carnegie $225 million, or over $8 billion today. It is, at the time, the largest liquid fortune in the world. Tom's widow, Lucy, receives $58 million for the shares still in his name, becoming one of the world's richest women overnight. But while Lucy spreads her windfall among her children and grandchildren, Andrew fully commits to giving his money away. In the ensuing years, Carnegie builds over 2,000 more libraries around the world, spending over $55 million, the equivalent of over $2 billion today. He also funds the creation of the Carnegie Institute of Technology in Pittsburgh, which would later become Carnegie Mellon University. He becomes a benefactor of several black colleges, including Booker T. Washington's Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. And he donates $10 million to establish the Carnegie Trust for the Universities of Scotland. But even after a decade of almost non-stop giving, in 1911, most of Andrew Carnegie's vast fortune still remains.
Carnegie was making huge amounts of interest on his bonds, and he couldn't give it away fast enough. So his lawyer said, look, create a foundation. Pick the smartest people you know, and when you're gone, they'll give away the rest of the money.
In 1911, Carnegie establishes the Carnegie Corporation to oversee several charitable trusts, which going forward fund the construction of more libraries, museums, educational institutions, and social service organizations around the world. he establishes a pension fund for American teachers.
He said no teacher should ever retire after giving a lifetime of service to children without having the money to retire on and live the rest of their lives.
And he builds the now famous World Court at The Hague.
Toward the end of his life, his passion was world peace. He thought wars were incredibly destructive. He spent a tremendous amount of money trying to form peace organizations and to get leaders together.
Sadly, Carnegie's wealth and commitment cannot prevent the horror of World War I.
Woodrow Wilson had pledged to keep us out of war. Carnegie thought he was making progress. And when the First World War started, he was so disappointed and so devastated.
The disappointment does not curtail Carnegie's commitment to his philanthropy, which by 1918 ranks as the most massive redistribution of industrial wealth the world has ever seen.
As Carnegie said, the man who dies rich dies disgraced. He was for 100% inheritance taxes. He wanted the money that the millionaires and the billionaires made to go back to the communities.
Carnegie's charitable giving is supported wholeheartedly by his wife Louise and his now grown daughter, for whom he has already set aside a small trust to provide for them after his death. Knowing his legacy of philanthropy will be in good hands, on August 11th, 1919, Andrew Carnegie passes away at the age of 83. At the time of his death, Carnegie has given away $350 million, almost every penny of his wealth.
Andrew Carnegie was probably one of the most optimistic people that has ever lived. He approached his business with optimism. He approached giving his money away with optimism.
Louise and his daughter Margaret become trustees on the board of the Carnegie Corporation. After Louise's death in 1946, Margaret, the mother of 4 children, dedicates herself to carrying on the family's philanthropic efforts for several more decades. Before her death in 1990, at the age of 93. As the years have passed, ensuing generations have remained involved in the Carnegie Corporation's work, honoring the family legacy, without the weight and expectations of the vast wealth that Andrew Carnegie chose not to pass down.
It is a wonderful, wonderful legacy, but it does not make us who we are. We were all brought up with the expectations that we would make our own way in life, which was consistent with Andrew Carnegie's philosophy and what he did with his fortune.
Andrew Carnegie said, wealth you have like that is in trust, and you make the best use of it you can, and when you go, it's time for somebody else to have a chance to do that.
For generations, the Carnegie name has served as an example, encouraging those with immense wealth to follow a similar path.
Carnegie has brought that message to the Gates and the Buffetts and helped to motivate the creation of a new generation of philanthropists.